Hello, I'm Dave Feinleib, and this is Beyond the Shelf. This show is an open exploration of the people and process behind e-commerce. Through conversations with innovators in the space, we learn the stories of these leaders and their strategies for e-commerce success. You can find out more about how we're helping leading brands and retailers optimize content at scale, plus learn about our new sell sheet builder at ItsRapid.ai. My guests on today's show are Brett Banner, Senior Vice President of Strategy, and Ray-Marie Guimond, Director of Strategy and Business Development at PriceSpider. Prior to his current role, Brett was Vice President of Global Customer Success at PriceSpider, and before PriceSpider, Brett was Director of Customer Success at Verizon Connect, Director of Customer Success and Partner Programs at Winspire, and Director of Account and Channel Management at Sage. Before her current role, Ray was Director of E-commerce and Account Supervisor of E-commerce at the Integer Group, an Omnicom Group company, where she worked with a who's who list of brands, including Starbucks, P&G, Nestle, Duracell, Michelin, Johnson & Johnson, and Organic Valley, to name just a few. Before Integer, Ray was a consultant for brand content and marketing at Swanson Health and also held agency consulting and business analyst roles at Department 11, Warner Music Group, and CRV Electronics. We discuss Brett and Ray's roles at PriceSpider, their perspectives on omni-channel retail, how the company has built a network of over 32,000 retailers, and their predictions for the next 12 months in omni-channel retail. Please enjoy my conversation with Brett Banner and Ray-Marie Guimond. Brett and Ray, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Glad to be a part of it.
Thanks so much for having us, Dave. Glad to be here.
Brett, take us back, would you? How did you get your start in the space?
Flashing back in the past here, I actually got my degree in business and marketing and wanted to surf for 6 months. So I paid my way through that by working in retail at Nordstrom's. We all know it. We all love it. But later on, I got my start in marketing in the corporate world, but soon fell in love with two areas, and that's been kind of a common theme, the art and science of customer success and the art and science of leadership. Those are my passions. I've always applied that to everything I've done. So in the software and data equation, it's all about delivering business outcomes. And I've always loved that simple focus because it keeps the customer and their objectives at the forefront of the relationship. I've done this in a few industries for 4 successful startups, 1 established global giant, but the common thread has been connecting how technology, data, and services can align to an organization's strategy. So about 5 years ago, I met with the PriceSpider founders and loved the solution. I love their clients, the market position that they're in, and it just felt familiar. It felt like home. So they started leading their global customer success teams and the 2,000 plus brands that we support. I always say that's kind of accelerated my education in the space. It's given me a lot of at-bats and accelerated learnings just based on the volume and variety of our customers' footprints. Got to walk in a lot of great brands' doors and just hear what they're struggling with, hear what they're trying to accomplish, and try to help them along the way. So today, I just get to apply what I've learned in the space to connect product, marketing, and community strategy to help brands grow.
I love it. You're heading up strategy now, and we're going to talk more about that. I want to take a moment and talk about customer success. It's one of the most critical parts of the business, I find. I'd love to hear a story or words of wisdom from all the time you spent working so closely with customers.
Oh, man, it goes back to the very simple definition. I don't know if I coined it or if I heard it, but it's a broken record. Any team I've ever worked with, I say this all the time. Simple definition. It's selling and delivering business outcomes. And why that's important is you could get caught up in just your own internal vacuum of how you think about the world, what you're trying to do as an organization. And so to keep the customer at that forefront. And if I realize every customer is different, yeah, there are some common threads, but it's really about tailoring it to where they are, their maturity, their capabilities, and specifically where they're trying to go. And if you do that, how that forms the relationship, how that forms how you work with them, how you build joint business plans, and really just your rhythm of life with that business, everything centers around that. It helps with the tough times when you're prioritizing this versus that. It helps remind you if you're on course or not. So just making sure, what does Dave want to do personally? What makes him look good? What is he trying to accomplish at his level? What is the organization trying to accomplish? And just keeping that as your North Star.
Ray, you've had this incredible combination of experiences across agency, brand, vendor. Tell us how you got your start in the space.
I really like this question, and it's great to be doing this podcast with Brett because he asked me a question I get a lot is, tell me what in the world medieval literature has to do with what you do today. And it was awesome because I said, Brett, you're right in my wheelhouse. And it's perfect because he cares so much about the customer and what is the strategy with that experience. And so I love to ask the question, we have a brand, we're in a fairy tale, we have a hero in this fairy tale. Who is the hero in the fairy tale? Is it the brand or is it the customer?
Wow.
How are you going to answer?
Whew. For me, it's the customer. I'm always about the customer.
It is and I say it is the customer. And you'd be surprised how many, whether I'm talking to a brand or when I was doing consulting, say it's me. I'm the brand. I'm going to be the hero of the story for the customer. And it's like, no, the customer is the hero of the story. They're the hero of the journey. The brand, you have the magical thing, the lantern, the apple. I think I once told a CEO that, he was the old woman in the woods, looking to give the customer that, but it made him stop and think. Long story short, though, came up through English and marketing, got my master's, quickly went into academic publishing in New York, working with Bedford St. Martin's, the beginning of the 2000s when things were going digital. We were experiencing a transformation. And I'll go back to transformation and liminal spaces at the end here, but it was really about taking what was that physical object and figuring out how to sell it digitally. Education, quickly moved over to Warner Music Group. Our team there, when I served as a business analyst, we were selling ringtones, right? The first edition of the Razor. Now the Razor has come back around. So I go back to selling ringtones, and that just morphed into additional digital marketing and sales. Really love working with brands. How do we set up Amazon pages optimized for search discoverability? Spent a great time consulting, not only creating content, but then obviously like the marketing strategy side of it. Then, get a cold call while I was on my merry way as a director of e-commerce at Integer from a company called PriceSpider. Had worked with digital shelf solutions before, and PriceSpider was standing up a new product and really wanted to find someone who could both help them nurture that product, grow it out of pilot, and then obviously land and expand in the market. Saw these guys who were really great at crawling. We're showing how you crawl live because you want to see what the shopper sees. And, that leads us to, that very first interview with Brett where he asked, hey, what does this medieval literature have to do with, fairy tales? And I'm like, it actually works really well because it is about that journey. It is about the path to purchase and how do we help that shopper have those experiences that is going to find them that product that makes them the hero of their day.
So not only can I call you for advice on the digital shelf, but when I'm at a loss as to what bedtime story to tell that starts with once upon a time, I now know who to call.
Absolutely. And I love twice told tales too. So when you sort of ask about, who helps inform our career today, we'll go back to that a bit.
Such a great background and breadth of experiences. Brett, I want to take a moment and talk about your experience at Sage. You've, as you mentioned, worked across a number of these organizations. Sage was unique in that it had 6 million business customers. A lot of us now are doing 1,000 customers. 10,000 is a big, big number. How do you think about 6 million, keeping them happy, serving their needs? What's that like?
Yeah, I mean, when you put it that way, I think I was naive enough not to really get, crushed by that pressure. But Sage was just a great experience for me. It's still fun to follow the company and colleagues still thriving there today. For me, Sage really taught me the ropes. It was highly complex internally and externally. I think we could relate to that with brands as well, right? And we're dealing with ERP, CRM, warehouse management solutions. And not only that, but they had a ton of products and a huge partner and third-party product channel. My teams were at the epicenter of all of that. It was a period of time where they were transforming from on-premise to SaaS solutions. So it was also a really good learning experience to be at that forefront of the major industry change. I mean, that's really when CSM, customer success was born. I think I worked with truly amazing people. I think the takeaways I got was how to see the forest through the trees, how to be extremely agile and somewhat thrive in chaos. I've always kind of thrived and embraced chaos from my experience at Sage in a positive way. Sue Swenson was the CEO early on, and she always said that if you don't like change, you shouldn't be in technology, as the rapid pace of change will always be a constant. And I've applied that everywhere I've gone. Thinking about that now, I think the pace is even accelerated further when you add technology and e-commerce into the mix. So everywhere I've gone, I haven't blinked. You have those battle scars. You've been in the trenches, and so you kind of know how to see the forest through the trees.
Now at PriceSpider, you and Ray are focused on strategy. First, tell our listeners a little about PriceSpider, if you will, and some of the capabilities that you offer.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you my best elevator pitch here. But, for some context, our client is a brand manufacturer that sells their products online through a channel. Fairly simple, right? We're a SaaS provider that's built on an enablement and analytics platform, and that gives complete control of the consumer journey back to brands. We make this possible because both the digital shelf and full funnel conversion can be enabled across any digital touch point, any channel, and any path to purchase. I have to say that over and over and over because our clients sometimes, really this, really that? Can you really do this? And it's really important that it's that entire ecosystem. And we all know that, the omni-channel equation, it's getting more and more complex as customer expectations grow, as market capabilities evolve. So brands really need technology and data, especially, to compete and stay relevant in the market. So with our platform, brands can deliver a seamless full funnel shopping experience while gaining broader and faster insight because they're connecting all digital touch points, and meaning brand assets, social, search, marketplace. So that's our client. That's where our platform really plays a role. And that's kind of the problems that we help solve for our clients.
Ray, thinking back to your brand experience, your time working with so many great brands, can you give us kind of an example, maybe without naming names, but what a leading brand is doing to leverage some of this technology, I think, especially in the omni-channel case?
Absolutely. And I think what that really is understanding that there's no one size fits all when it comes to that shopper journey. We've seen the evolution over time. We'll talk a lot about that strategy and transformation of how shoppers are shopping. For some of our brands, they are seeing generational change. So their core shopper who might have gone in store is sort of, unfortunately aging out, right? Generational change is happening. And we have the rise of that digital first shopper. Have them in my house. They would not think of going in store, but they really want to look online, right? Over-index for social commerce, mobile commerce. And it's really about brands testing and learning with that change in the demographic. One of the biggest things I do when I sit with brands and we talk about, what are their overall goals? What's the KPI that's going to get to that goal? Then what's the metric that gets to that KPI and what's the data? It's just saying, okay, we start with the outcome. And we work our way back, across that path to purchase. And it's for a brand to discover, I'm going to have to go into social. Like I'm seeing that more in the hardware space. Absolutely seeing that change. And if you're a brand and you're in CPG, you're in beauty, you might be like, well, of course. But for some of our brands, it's really understanding how they can better meet that shopper for their core product. And it's about getting basket level detail to understand, oh, this is an audience that might be in lifestyle for my product. Maybe I can actually start to explore some retail media spend, some shoppable solutions on that. And it's at scale. Like, how can I test and learn in a speedy way? And then how can I evolve that at scale? So for some of our brands, they are emerging into their first test and learns with TikToks. For others, it's really re-engaging with email. But being able to use the same kind of campaigns in different ways very quickly to test that out. With the deprecation of third-party cookies, a lot of brands are turning more to that first-party permission. Once you have that, you can go ahead and remarket via email. And that remarketing to audience is a key piece. So some of our small brands and big brands are really looking at some of those other areas where it might have been nice to have to get conversions on it, but they're really seeing them as viable paths to purchase.
It's great. So you've got all these different channels. And as you both mentioned, I think Omni is really coming back into the equation and the conversation now. What are you hearing on that when you talk to these brands, and what are some of their challenges and some of the opportunity there?
I'm passionate about this topic, and a top challenge I see that brands really struggle with is pushing through their own organizational and data silos. And that's becoming more difficult now because brand teams are being asked to do more with less, as we all know. So, our perspective in that is that brands need to rethink about meeting the consumer where they are in the journey and then organizing around that. In concept, I know that brand leaders get that, but it takes changing the organizational structure, the roles, the KPIs, the investments, the marketing mix. Like centers of excellence that have formed over the years have really led the way, but there's still a long way to go in this area. And what we see is that the balance is you still need to connect the dots internally to unlock the full funnel kind of cross-channel and counterpart metrics while still allowing that function to carry on their design role. I'll give you an easy example for me that always resonates. Working with a client that really gets this and puts the power of the data and the technology to work in areas like a customized retailer scorecard that's built to specifically quantify and reinforce the value of their omni-channel program to drive internal and external adoption and results. This is a major global CPG brand, and they've got great centralized enablement teams that really get this. And so it's inspiring and encouraging when we see that level of cross-functional enablement and execution, as we know what's possible. They took years of data that they collected from our services, from their internal data, to really analyze and come up with their benchmarks, their KPIs, and specific value quantification to drive channel adoption of their products, and to drive alignment with the channel of the things that they're asking them to do. And it's been really successful. It's something that you see it and you're so excited about it, and you're like, great, we're not sharing trade secrets, but let's share concepts. Let's share what's possible. And I'll have that conversation with another client, and hey, what are you doing with this data to share it with your channel teams? And more often than not, oh, we haven't even talked to them about this. We haven't shared anything. We haven't figured out how to enrich that relationship. So, the obstacle is there, but the opportunity is there as well. And what's possible is there.
You've seen this because you have this incredible network, tens of thousands of retailers. It's almost hard to imagine how many that is. It's an incredible number. How does that network work? What's going on there?
We're a brand manufacturer. We're dependent on that retailer. There's a give and a take there, right? There's some partnership there. There's some checks and balances there. But at the end of the day, the retailers we can connect with and the shared value proposition in that omni-channel equation is huge. So it's a huge value proposition and strategy in how a brand decides to represent their retailers in that equation, right? The world's most iconic brands are making significant investments in marketing and channel programs, and they just need a way to harness and control that across the funnel. So, PriceSpider's network traffic, we know it from measurement. It's a huge source of highly qualified leads, number one, and new customer acquisition for retailers. So, having the network enablement and measurement capabilities in place is extremely important for a brand to command that comprehensive channel strategy. So our network is really built on that win-win equation, which balances representation, lead flow, path to purchase enablement, and data sharing to drive that optimal customer experience first and foremost, but also that exchange of value with the retailer. Brands really value our role in that equation because we have a strong data acquisition and integration foundation. Crawling is a big piece of that. And that's in place and can operate independent of that retailer landscape. So how it works is at the forefront, it's about connecting the retailer wherever the brand and consumers intersect based on custom business rules. There's machine learning, there's AI that can visualize data like stock, price, availability, ratings and reviews, and showcase preferred buying options dynamically and in real time. So that's the first part of that retailer network that we have to enable. At the same time, we're committed to the depth of the data and direct partnerships. So to give you some stats, 70% of our network provides full cart visibility. That's what allows the brand to have full access to the granular conversion data around sales, receipt, basket analysis. A lot of folks out there might just talk about purchase intent, and that's really just kind of a click through, right? But how do we empower them seeing exactly what Dave did, what his preferred retailer was, and what he bought? Was it my product? Was it a competitor product? Or was it a stick of gum? Like, we're able to give you that granular detail. And that data acquisition, it's an art and a science. So having direct partnerships are really key as well. Over 2/3 of our network are direct partner relationships as well. So it's a huge shout out to our teams in place. We've got partner teams, retailer teams, and their day job is continuing to expand what's possible in that data exchange and just make sure we have a really thriving network.
So if I can play it back to you, the value prop is really this connection point between retailers and brands and surfacing this data that perhaps you can't even get anywhere else.
You think about what's going on in retail media or anything else, and we're clamoring for information, we're clamoring for data, we're clamoring for insight, but sometimes you don't get it, right? Sometimes we only unlock this one gate. And so how do we complement that and make sure you have a better holistic view?
Yeah, and I'll add that it's really the visibility to getting a brand that, because what we found is when a brand can get visibility into that engagement, connect that through, sort of that upper funnel awareness, you're coming in through perhaps a shoppable solution that you're seeing on social. That consumer goes down that page, they're shown a really nice brand, experience. That's the other piece we touched on a little bit with omnichannel is how's that brand showing up across all those different intersections, right? When you can turn that browsing moment into a shopping moment. And that's the biggest piece. There's sort of this necessary tension that I think is existing between what consumers want. They want multiple paths to purchase. They want to be able to be in store, hit a QR code, go on mobile, maybe check out via mobile because a different assortment size or pack size or variety is available. Maybe they can get it quicker because they're having an out of stock experience in store. And on the brand side, they might not want to adapt. We still have brands that are having very real conversations about how can we help in store, our brand.com and our retailers all drive together. And it's possible, but it goes to that breaking down of silos and getting them that data. I sort of like the data can help tell the story. It can help break down barriers. So you have someone who is in charge of brand identity looking at that from our image is correct. Do we have the right primary image in our sponsored ads? To, and I have sales data, and then getting sales and pricing or merchandising to care and understand why that data can be so impactful. So we like to say it's really about, helping brands take back control of that shopper journey through that data visibility. So then they can get those insights, test and learn their strategies, and hopefully accelerate.
Test and learn with the data and bringing your medieval history background to the present, you help them then tell the story. So it really does connect all the dots, which is a perfect segue, I think, to talk about the exciting partnership that ItsRapid and PriceSpider are announcing. Here at ItsRapid, we're helping your customers and customers broadly create images, create videos, create banners, different kinds of assets at scale that they need for these different content solutions, whether it's digital shelf or shoppable. Tell us about, from your perspective, the partnership and what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And first and foremost, yes, hot off the press, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited to announce our official partnership with ItsRapid. Really appreciate the work you've done, Dave, with us to get us to this point, and welcome to the Spider-Verse. You're here. Our partnership approach overall is looking at how we can multiply the value we offer to our customers by building a network of like-minded experts, products, and services. We've really been leading the charge and been a household name for decades. And part of our strategy is thinking about what is that ideal tech stack? What is that ideal service for our clients? And when there's a complementary product or service or expertise out there, we want to bring them into the fold. So we know through measurement how critical content and creative is across all channels and mediums, right? We know the value of self-service or managed services to scale content creation in the rapid pace and under-resourced environments we all work in. So we have so much overlap as companies and synergies based on the brand and retailers we both work with already. And our solutions have a great better together story. I can name off a dozen use cases. And one that I'm particularly interested in is how we can further enable brands that are connecting their shoppable media into the platform. Shoppability is here to stay. It's synonymous with where to buy. It's synonymous with the digital shelf. It's synonymous with this entire ecosystem. Traditionally, it's been somewhat handled separately. So we all know that content and creative sells products, whether that's in the digital shelf, retail media, social media, brand sites, or even that point of that transaction. A great friend of mine and colleague always said social media can be the world's largest focus group to test and learn quickly to impact all areas. So being able to make the content development as accessible and seamless as our self-service campaign and testing capabilities, for us, that's a perfect match. So excited to let all of our clients know about your services, about your product offering. And I think it's just going to equip them better to be agile, to test and learn faster, and to really delight their consumers. But I'm going to throw it back at you, Dave. I'd love to hear your journey in exploring this and how this all came together.
I think one of our customers said it the best. He said, speed, quality, or cost effectiveness. Which two of three do you want? That's the classic question. And he said, what you at ItsRapid are doing is getting us a whole lot closer to being able to do all three of those: speed, quality, and doing it cost effectively, doing all three at the same time. And that's really what we're all about is, can you scale? Can you do it fast? But can you maintain that quality level and do it cost effectively? Because to your point, often you have these great opportunities, whether it's with the retailer, with the campaign you're running, and then it's time to execute and you can't get scheduled to get the creative built. Seems easy, but you're missing that key asset that you need, that product image layered on a background, something that fits in the right size or the format, the DPI, dots per inch, whatever it is that you need for that one campaign, you need it in order to go execute. And that's really what we're about enabling. So it's a great match, like you said, because you're bringing together this creative execution with this data, whether that's data that's informing us on the front end, what creative should we build, or telling us how is our creative doing and monitoring to tell us here's what's going on and maybe here's what we can do on the test and learn front as we continue to iterate. So likewise, really excited about the opportunity.
And I'll say, I was going to go back to some of the challenges that when we're talking with brands, it really is how can I accelerate the creative and actually get it produced, syndicate it out correctly, and then I can start taking a look at the effect. And so game I like to play, Dave, is sort of leading or lagging metric. We were kind of joking around a bit in the prep, but conversion rate, is that leading or lagging metric? And your answer was, nope, that's lagging. It's already happened, right? That's what we see today. So a lot of the things that our partnership, I like that it'll focus on is those leading metrics, those metrics like image carousel, that hero image in your media or your campaign. All those items, we know that if you get set that really well, you've got good brand identity, good brand integrity, and branded experience across that journey. We know it impacts and removes those barriers to purchase for brands. And so it's really about having brands understand, where they need to get to have their products be retail and media ready. Seeing that come to fruition via the partnership, and then being able to test and rapidly accelerate the deployment of that across a lot of shoppable solutions to make those browsing moments, shopping moments. So we love to talk about the power of the platform here at PriceSpider, and it's really about connecting that awareness journey as you get further down into the funnel to conversion and loyalty. And one of the biggest things we know is that brand experience, and that branded experience, it's authentic. It's the brand you want to spend your money on. Pennies are tight, right? CPI just came out for Feb. It's 3.1. You go back and look at the last 12 to 18 months, we still see consumers, being choosy with their spend. PriceSpider did some research at the end of last year, which brands were really saying across the US and EMEA that, they're seeing shoppers trade down. Private label is a big one where our brands are under pressure in the category. And so there are brands who are really looking to try to protect against that private label trade down, but also remove any of those barriers to purchase. And visual plays a huge game in it. Looks like the brand I want, sounds like the brand I want, hopefully is the brand I want at a reputable retailer. Temu's been an interesting conversation as well, with them allowing US sellers in the market. But I think it's really important, especially when a brand is looking to ensure that they're showing up on any channel as that authentic brand experience.
Now, you're talking to your brand, you're having their conversation, they're talking to you about retail media and content investments and digital shelf, where to buy solutions. How do you help them navigate those different investments that they could be making?
We kind of start with, sometimes I feel it's like the digital shelf hour of, tell me your problems. I'll pull up a chair and listen. I've worn the hat. But a lot, it's like, what is the most pain point right now? What is really where you think you might be under pressure, or you just can't get a handle on it? For a lot of brands, it's, I need to automate more. Brett mentioned, we know their resources are tight. We know they're also looking at consolidating their marketing tech to make sure they're using the breadth of it. So it really is about digging in to say, you have this business goal. How has that business goal changed, coming out of COVID? And what we've seen is sort of like a resetting of where we are with consumers and their purchase rates, their basket sizes, and trying to understand those KPIs that are really going to move it. So I sort of call it like the digital shelf success story. And once you can help them identify those indicators, then you can get down to like that metric in the data. I spend a lot of my time talking with brands about, they'll say, we want to be able to crawl price 8 times a day. And I'm like, wow, 8 times a day. What is happening in your category? And unless it's like the Cyber 5 and you're in consumer electronics, I'm like, do you really need that amount? What are you going to do with the data? It goes back to the outcomes that Brett was talking about. And so it's sitting with them and really trying to understand what they think is going to help move their business. What we know working across several markets, there's a lot of industries, I'd mentioned hardware before, beauty, certain home goods, where they have new entrants into the market. They have new shoppers who are now starting these purchase journeys, and they're trying to understand what's really going to motivate them. So it's a mix of, what are your business goals? How have your consumer demographics changed? Now let's talk about shoppers. Shoppers are when we're at that retailer, right? We're in that purchase moment. And then what have you done before, and what are you looking to do? So it's almost a ecosystem review. Brett talked a lot about the forest and the trees. And you got to get them down to look at the trees and look at some of the differences in the clusters to then try to figure out that strategic recommendation. For some of our brands, it's, you want to work on discovery and awareness. You're in hardware. You've got a lot of new entrants into the market. Let's talk about getting your digital shelf to a point that it's healthy. Let's talk about priority SKUs, new product launches. Let's feature those in shoppable solutions. Yeah, let's update your where to buy. People are going to that brand.com, but you can also drive them to retailers. And then let's take a look and see what we can see with the data to evolve it and hopefully accelerate once we find those things that work.
So truly is customer first.
Customer first. We really believe in partnerships and, good, bad, or sometimes ugly reviews. It's great to see the G2 badges that we just got on PriceSpider for our solutions, but we know UGC, user-generated content, is king when it comes to reviewing a product you want to purchase. And so that's why we do go customer first as well at PriceSpider.
I love it. I want to get your quick list of predictions for the next 12 months. Don't worry, I won't come back and audit you 12 months from now.
All right, I'll get started with it, and I hope you do audit me. But I think there's a lot of buzzwords and things we could rattle off. 4 things I'm watching in particular that I call them more near term. But number one, I do think brands are going to be forced to adapt to center of excellence or other org models to better align to how the modern consumer shops. I think it's no longer a nice to have, it's going to be a have to have. And so that's going to change organizational structures and investments internally at the highest level. We're seeing that. Number 2, I think AI is going to shape what's next. And a byproduct of that is going to put a huge resurgence and spotlight on e-commerce measurement. I saw this somewhere online, but AI without data is like retail without inventory. I'm seeing the projections of where people are going to invest in AI. And the worst thing that I'd hate to see is these big investments get made and there's no return on those because you don't have the foundational data layer in place to make the machines work for you. So I think that's going to be huge. The other thing about AI that just racks my brain and I can't compute fully yet is thinking about how to manage the path to purchase or the digital shelf when we remove humans from the equation and AI is shopping on behalf of the human, right? If you think about the implications of everything we know about brand commerce, when machines start doing that shopping for us, that's going to be wild, but it's going to happen. I think the third is we're only going to see the starting point of shoppability. New channels, marketplaces, shopping methods, payment methods. They're going to continue to emerge. They're going to continue to keep us on our toes. And number 4, pricing pressure is going to be intense. And so brands are really going to have to rationalize their position there.
The AI shopping for us, the shopping assistant. I'm nervous and excited, not sure which at this very moment, but I think more excited to see how it's all going to play out. Ray, what are your thoughts, predictions, things that you're watching for the next 12 months?
I mean, transformation is going to continue to happen. We see transformation in shoppers and how they're looking at different path to purchases. Apple, Vision Pro is launched, right? When we had the metaverse and VR, what does a digital shelf look like in that, right? And for some brands, it makes perfect sense. You're going into a store, you're looking at clothes, you're able to pick that out and purchase via that. So I think with Apple and that technology for a certain segment of consumer, it's going to be an interesting place to explore. Do I think it's going to replace things? No, I just think it's, again, you've got to test and learn and see if that's viable. But the other thing is that deprecation of third-party cookies. So knowing that if you're on an Apple headset in that VR, you probably got to do a lot of first-party consent. And so brands who are on it are going to find a lot more engagement data and behavior data, I think, from that. So it'd be interesting to see if that's what kind of pushes more election for people to shop that way, because they're going to have more personalized experience. Sort of an outlier, but again, I don't think it can be ignored, right? The first couple of years that digital music outsold the CD, like everybody freaked out and was like, there's no way. And then it gave rise to, your Spotify's and your Apple Music. And, think about that change over time. The other piece I think is it is along the back to basics route. It goes a little bit with pricing, intense pricing pressure. How are brands going to react to that? We're already seeing it. Brands that don't have a MAP policy, minimum advertised pricing, authorized seller program, are getting those locked in place. Brands are really going after price erosion because of that intense pricing pressure. We saw it through the holiday season this year. I feel like Amazon and Walmart are just calling each other and going back and forth between price changes, right? It's a race to the bottom. So brands have expressed a dissatisfaction. I've had it too at Amazon and their pricing. But what they can do is kind of like starve Amazon of being able to match to those lower prices. How do you do that? You go far and wide with a tool like Prowl that we have. You see who's selling unauthorized sellers. You see what your authorized sellers are selling it for. You enforce, you protect that brand identity. Everyone is happier in a certain respect. So it's about taking those outliers in price and making sure that you're seeing a slimmer movement, versus like these big swings that are happening. So a little bit of back to the basics there where you can, depending on where you're working and the regulations on price and competitor activity. The other thing is just continued merging of a shopper journey. If I had to map out a shopper journey these days, you see all these Venn diagrams. It's very sporadic depending on where you're catching that shopper. So it's that continued shoppability piece, like Brett is saying, for how do you make any browsing moment shoppable? And for some brands, they haven't even considered what is a digital shelf. And I like to define a digital shelf that anywhere you can have that product listed, it leads to a purchase. So a search result page is a digital shelf. That Instagram ad that says shop now when you get 3 products, that's a digital shelf. A QR code that I see at a concert, right? We've seen people thought QR codes were going to die before the pandemic. They are back and brands are using them in multiple locations, right? You've got QR codes on shelf stalkers in store. I'm going to a concert. What do I have? My phone. Oh, there's a QR code. A brand is launching this new product that I got, a nice tasty beverage. And maybe I want to buy a variety pack while I'm sitting here and I can get it delivered home. QR code is going to make that happen. So you're going to see that initial blending or continued blending of that shopping experience and what that moment can look like. Again, so that customer can get that product and be the hero of their day, right? It might just be the moment. School projects due and no one has construction paper, right? You don't want to go to 3 stores. You want to know what store has it in stock so you can pick it up. But, I might also then go buy a couple other things too, because I might decide to go in store to pick up my online order. Again, a merging and a blending of what shopping looks like.
Remind me to talk to you after about QR codes for sell sheets. I think I might have something there for you. Let me ask you both a few quick questions before we wrap up. I know it's hard to pick just 2, but if you had to choose just 2 people who have inspired you the most in your professional life, who would they be?
All right, I'll go first. Professional life, I go back to Maria Metz. She's based out of Chicago. She is in marketing intelligence and insights. So her career started out, working for the larger Motorola's of the world. She was someone also who decided to have a family, went into consulting with her own firm for a decade and a half, and then, went back to bigger brand, and then now is kind of back to consulting. So I think the biggest thing there is just that there's different moments that can be transformational. And, as you look at your career and how that inspires you, it's, knowing what is authentic to what you're really interested in and where you can have the most agency in effect. And, as Brett mentions, talking about Sage and a couple of his other experiences, you bring all of that experience together with you to where you are in the present day. So she's been someone who has mentored me throughout some of those different stages in my own career. And no mystery why Brett and I like to spend time on the fringe, right? We're comfortable in those uncomfortable spaces. So she's someone who has been a good mentor. The other one I actually go back to, and I said I would get to it, a professor of English, Dr. Kathleen O'Gorman. I took my first modernist literature, avant-garde literature class with her. And she really dived deep into those liminal spaces. What are liminal spaces? They're that space in between that, that before you're at the doorway, right? The threshold, that space at the ocean where you've got the sand and the water and they just quite meet, but you're not wet yet. It can be physical, emotional. A lot of our brands, and a lot of us in technology, we spend a lot of time in that liminal space. We're not quite sure what's next. We know things are changing. A transformation is happening. Is it going to be good or bad? We're not sure. But, Brett and I are like, we're going to take our data as a foundation and go forward. So I look at her as someone who is helping me bridge that liminality, those spaces I like to work in with brands and corporations and really help, shoppers, and consumers obviously like connect, right? E-commerce is quite a liminal transformational space, and it can be paralyzing, but it can also lead to a really good evolution. So those are my two.
Brett, who are your sources of inspiration?
I'm going to exclude present company. And I love this question because I have a working draft that I'm going to post on LinkedIn, trying to get my top 10. So I'll share that with you, Dave, as well. But I think the first one at Sage, one of the most passionate and dynamic leaders I've ever worked under, Julia Stegman. Give her all the credit in the world. I think she modeled everything I needed to know about executive leadership as a leader, as a mentor, as a friend. We're still connected. She's gone on to do great things in her career as well. But most of us, the success that we've had oftentimes is the people around us that invest in us. So Julia Stegman, major shout out there. I think the other one is, you mentioned Verizon Connect. Initially, it was called Telligis. It was a startup. And the entire staff, which was really enabled through Dave Cousins, the CEO, the founders, Jason and Nuth, everything about that organization. We had a successful exit to Verizon, became Verizon Connect. It's the glory days that everyone still gets together and talks about. But two things, Dave always said, do it today. That was one of his cousinisms. And it really just projected a culture that said, it's better to move forward than to be perfect, and we'll figure it out along the way. And just so much behind that. Do it today. If you said that to anyone that worked there, they would just smile. Jason Koch, one of the founders, he'd always say proven learnings. And ultimately, that was another way to say a mistake. And he really embraced mistakes because we learned from those. They were proven learnings. And so every single member at Telligis was inspiring. They're still connected, the leadership team, and seeing great success in their careers. So huge shout out to that group.
Outside of work and family, when you do get a little bit of downtime, favorite hobbies?
I find that I need to be creative in my downtime. I spend so much time with ones and zeros in the digital world. And so I do knitting. I also make my own soap. So just something COVID kind of helped me go into that a little bit more. I also like to ski. I haven't figured out how to knit and ski at the same time. But we moved to Colorado to enjoy the outdoors when we can. So Brett often asked if I'm going to ride along with them at a conference, and I was like, "Oh, it's ski season." But it's nice to get outside, and I find that that's also restorative too. So try to keep my hobbies something very creative and tactile that also have kind of that restorative component.
So well said, Brett.
Nice. I mean, I've got 4 kids under 11, so they all keep me busy. But outside of that, anything outside, surfing, camping, hiking, gardening, or reading, that's probably my top 5.
Amazing. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to find you online?
For me, if you want to get in touch with me at PriceSpider, I'm ray@PriceSpider.com. Pretty simple email address. Otherwise, LinkedIn, whole name, Ray Marie Guimond, you'll find me. I think I'm only one on LinkedIn, but we'll see. It's the World Wide Web. So
yeah, LinkedIn, you'll see me. All my contact information is there. It's a one-stop shop.
Wonderful. Such a great conversation. We covered so many amazing areas, incredible insights, and some personal stories and anecdotes that I've really enjoyed learning about from both of you. Thank you both so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Of course, Dave. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Dave. Looking forward to much more.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Beyond the Shelf is brought to you by ItsRapid. ItsRapid is the platform Pepsi, Sierra Nevada, Revlon, and hundreds of other leading brands and retailers use to build personalized content at scale. Whether that's images, videos, or product descriptions for their product detail pages, shoppable videos or banners for their digital ad campaigns, or sell sheets for sales enablement, brands that use ItsRapid are able to produce high-quality, on-brand content on average more than 80% faster than category competitors. To find out more, please visit itsrapid.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Shelf.